3, 2, 1.
Slate.
Fuck it. We'll do it live. Hello, and welcome to the Trebuchet. A new podcast that we're launching on April 1st, real date. And which is why we are recording kind of in a pinch, because a lot had to happen to get us here today. And this would be the part of the podcast where I say, hi, welcome to the Trebuchet Podcast. I'm your host, Manelick. And then we would just launch in, and I'd tell you the who, what, when, where, why, and how. But I feel like this is where we would need to pause for a cinematic break and do a 4-year recap of since you've been gone, and we'd reverse, and then I'd fill you in on everything. But we don't have time for that, so we're just going to jump right in. For those of you who have been here for a minute, hi, welcome back. You might have noticed I'm going by my maiden name now, Manelick, Manelick. Yes, that is Manelick. Terrible last name. Couldn't wait to get rid of it, which is why I got married at 21. That and the domestic violence that I grew up in and didn't know any better. I joke a lot, but also in my content is real truth. And if you know me, I have a nervous laugh. And if you've watched for a while, you've probably picked up on it. If you've been here for a minute, I used to go by my married name, Cybele. And I have a podcast called Golden Otter Divinations. Please, by all means, go over there and subscribe. Click the like button wherever we're going to put it on your screen. Because that's where a lot of you came to know me. And it's where I got my sea legs in all things podcasting and learned how to do this as a career, as a calling. But it's not where I was being my most authentic self. I was sharing parts of my life, but not all of my life. And I think obviously you're going to be on a platform called Moon's Mediumship and All Things Manifesting, where the metaphysical meets the mainstream, and we explored divination and alternative healing modalities and quantum physics and just all of the things that are unseen and used to be unspoken of, because I found out that I wasn't crazy. I was just ahead of my time, which talk about a relief. $30,000 in psych tests later. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But I wasn't crazy. I was just early. And that was kind of what we talked about on Golden Otter Divinations. We were just very much exploring where the metaphysical meets the mainstream. And I was trying so hard to bridge these metaphysical concepts that I was exploring with what was happening, in the mainstream, in mainstream television and mainstream media. While also being married to somebody in the military, active duty military, and myself working in the government. So when Golden Otter Divinations was first conceived of and birthed into this world, I was both nursing a baby, because my now 9-year-old Everly was literally a baby when I conceived of it, and gave birth to the company Golden Otter Divinations. And I was also working for the United States government. I had just landed my dream job in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Army Center of Military History. I tell the story to anyone who will listen that Douglas Lang, who is just the goat of all goats, greatest of all time, believed in me and saw something in me and gave me the opportunity to have this job that another military spouse actually gifted to me, because she had gotten headhunted for it and then saw the job and was like, Autumn, you'd be perfect for this. They're looking for a teacher to build out an online World War I curriculum. And I was like, say what? Don't mind the big rigs, coming to you live from the trailer park. Trailer parks in Malibu. And I will get to why I'm on a trailer, on a rooftop in a trailer park at another date. But back to the Douglas Lang story. So when I built out Golden Otter Divinations, I was working in my dream job, working for the U.S. Army Center of Military History. My incredible boss, Doug Lang, took a chance on me and hired me after Somebody else was headhunted for the job, another foreign area officer's spouse. What's funny is Joanna Lane. So Joanna Lane, if you're out there, hi. We used to talk about being in the waiting place where we were just waiting for life as DoD military spouses or like Army spouses. Life would just like pass us by. We're like, we're in the waiting space. We're in the waiting place. And it was this joke, but it was a very real thing that like we were just kind of along for the ride in someone else's career and someone else's upward trajectory and just kind of like supporting them and having their babies and packing up our entire lives and starting over and over and over again in pursuit of their career. A career that they always told us was ours, right? It's ours. It's our house. It's our money. It's our success. It's our career. It's our out. No, ladies. I'm here to tell you, if your DoD deadbeat is telling you that it's ours, get a separate account and start putting some of our money in it and see how they feel about it. How they feel about that is going to be your number one indicator of whether something is truly yours or ours. Because when I finally had the audacity to leave, I found out the hard way that what was ours was not ours. It was his. My body was his. My children were his. The house was his. The car was his. The dog was his. Dogs were his. The pictures on the wall were his. The furniture in the house was his. Like all of it. The career success was his. It's just, it is all theirs. And sadly, that is what the DoD conditions them to think like so that they can succeed. I don't know that it's what's in all of their hearts when they start. It's kind of that idea that Joe Rogan talks about where if a person is a good person, what happens when they get a little bit of power? You really see who they are. And it's like good people tend to stay good and people who are always going to be assholes just like become assholes on steroids. And I will definitely talk about that journey going from being married to a butter bar, which is like a military code for a second lieutenant, to a lieutenant colonel, which was always just his hopes and dreams and aspirations. And I supported him to that place. And then he did, I think it's called like the narcissistic reverse card, or it's like the discard card where they just like have no use for you anymore and then they just discard you like trash. It's super fun. Highly don't recommend, and would unsubscribe as quickly as possible to that lifestyle choice as possible. So what is the Trebuchet Podcast? And did I finish that story with Douglas Lane? Doug Lane gave me the job. I'll have Doug on here sometimes. Any of these people that I mentioned, if they ever want to come on, message me and we will like sit down and chat. And then you get to tell your version of this story from your perspective. Because the number one thing that I said when this production was like getting like looked at by major media companies for production was, I am not committed to being the hero. I'm not committed to being the villain. I just want the story to be told, and I want to share every single thing that I have learned along the way as a military spouse and what some people are calling like a trad wife. Never considered myself a trad wife. I always considered myself kind of like a ball buster and like a, you know, I don't know, like a unique, I don't even know. Like I didn't consider myself a traditional wife, but it turns out I was. And anyways, I just want this podcast to be somewhere where military spouses feel seen, especially after you've been like used and abused and then discarded by the DoD. And also I'm going to be sharing DoD whistleblower information, like places and people who I caught doing the wrong thing. CID investigations that went cold simply because people in power were accused, and they know how to cover their tracks. They know how to get their boys to cover down for them. They know how to work their alumni networks to cover down for them. I am still, and I'm attempting to divorce, an apex predator. And I call an apex predator a powerful white man. Say what you want. I had a girlfriend, she used to be my lash lady in DC years ago, get so upset with me right before I was moving to Africa. And I was like protecting these white men in my life and just saying like, well, they do this because, and I was like, and you're attacking this entire group of men, but like, those are my brothers. That's my husband. That's my grandpa. Those are like I'm a white woman. And she goes, yeah, and white women like you give birth to white male babies who then repeat the pattern. I was like, whoa, bitch. Hot take. I literally was getting my lashes done and like got up off the table. I had a panic attack and I like couldn't listen to what she was saying. Ended up calling my best friend, who's a white woman, or not a white woman, black woman, and somebody that I deeply like trust, and was like, Adrienne, like, tell me what I'm missing here. Like, what part of the conversation, like, am I not seeing? And this is like 2018, before the Me, like, not really before Me Too, but before like Black Lives Matter, before everything really like bubbled up into the public consciousness. But this woman, her name's Candace Ray, she's my lash lady, and she basically said, your silence is compliance, and you not standing up to what these men are doing. Because I used to tell her about all like the fucked up shit that would happen as like a DOD employee, and like the fuckery that these like sick, gross white men in power would do, like showing me pictures of dicks like at work, where I'm like, this is Tuesday and I have a really big presentation. I don't really want to be looking at like somebody's nutsack today, but that's what's happening. And then I would make excuses for them. And she's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you making these excuses? I was like, because they don't know any better. She's like, Autumn, these are powerful white men. Of course they know better. They just don't do better because nobody is holding them to the task. And I was like, okay, well, so what's that have to do with me? And she's like, you're the one giving birth to these types of men. You have all the power in the world and you just don't realize it. And I was like, I don't really see that. Because at the time I just didn't see it through that lens. And it really takes getting just completely fucked over and swallowed up and eaten alive whole by an apex predator before you get like, metaphorically, to use the ocean as our metaphor, shit out into the ocean into a million little pieces and going like, oh my God, they were right. Holy shit, there is a system. There is a hierarchy. There is a patriarchy. There is. Okay, fuck. I just got trampled by it. Now what do I do to not feel sorry for myself, not make this a like casting blame and pointing fingers and fuck them and fuck the man and let's tear it all down, because God knows I've had those nights where I'm just like screaming into the abyss. I'm like, how can this injustice happen to me? And but it's like, what's happening to me does, like, I'm not unique. I'm not special. This has been happening to women, especially, and minorities, especially, for millennia. And I'm just now in a position where I can actually use and there it is the thing, white privilege and my white girl privilege. And like, yeah, I will say it and I will call it out because it is a thing. And I never realized how much I benefited from it until I lost it. And now I'm able to see it for what it is and use it to advocate in the right places and spaces. And realizing that, like, for me, the only people who were ever able to move the dial in my situation, sadly, or gladly, I don't know what you want to call it, were other white men. Like, that's just what it was. But all along the way, there were so many voices and so many people who called things out and then supported me when and where they could from their own positions of strength and power. And this podcast is going to be about exploring it through their lens. Owning my own mistakes, owning my own faults. This is not going to be a place where we're like pointing fingers without, we're not going to point out a problem without a solution, or at least a proposed solution. For example, something that is really coming to the forefront right now is the military let's just do this example. Uniformed service members are committing crimes across the nation and OCONUS. CONUS being stateside, OCONUS being overseas. If I ever use an acronym, I will do my best to like explain it, because I recognize that not all of my viewers are going to be DOD or military affiliated. But if I ever like drop an acronym and you're a military spouse or a DOD employee, or like our shorthand and I don't catch my crib, like, can you please drop it in the comments? Like, hey, like somebody would say like, what's a FAO, or what's CONUS, or what's a triceratops? Somebody explain it in the comments, please. Because I never realized that I was like part of a subculture in the United States that has its own, side speak, until I started producing this podcast. I had so many civilians coming in, looking at it through their lens, going like, I don't understand. Like, why is this like this. And I'm like, it just is. This is just our world. So we're kind of bridging that. If Golden Otter Divinations was where the metaphysical meets mainstream, the Trebuchet Podcast is where the military meets the mainstream, and the military and the DoD as a whole are going to have to start to be accountable to the same laws and regulations that civilians have to face, because it's very, 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 very apparent that the DoD has a rules for thee but not for me policy. And to get back to the CID example, CID is the Army's Criminal Investigation Division. And they have a habit nationwide, unfortunately, of when a soldier commits a crime, it's reported to local authorities. But then those local authorities kick it back to the military because they go, oh, uniformed service member, we're kicking it back to the military authorities and we're going to let them take the wheel. And then what they end up doing is dragging their feet, botching investigations, and just turning a blind eye. I mean, really and truly. And that's what we're going to explore, is like how these systems fail military families that are meant to protect them because they're self-licking lollipops and there's no external like checks and balances. So for those of you who don't know like anything about me or my background, I am a licensed high school history teacher. I'm licensed middle school and up. I've got a master's in education, and I've got a bachelor's in art. So go Ducks. I was a University of Oregon alumni. I played women's rugby. Funny enough, I had a dream about my women's rugby team last night, and I walked in and saw them at a party. I was like, this is a rugby party. And then I turned, I was like, oh my gosh, it's my Dirty Ducks. Which I feel like a lot of these ladies would be really supportive, because when I told them I was getting married at 21, they're like, you're ruining your life. What are you doing, Autumn? Like, don't do it. I was like, no, I got Tim in love. But anyways, I state my credentials just so that it gives me a little bit of validity and a little bit of kickback to everybody who's like, she's crazy and she's this. It's like, you know what? Crazy like a fox. I'm the one sitting here recording a podcast in Malibu because of life circumstances, but because I do come from a position of privilege. I do have family support. I do have my education, and I do have access to some resources that not every woman and not most women have. And so I feel that it is not just something that's going to be healing for me to share, but literally something that I am obligated to do for my fellow military spouses who do not have this access, to know that 1, you're not alone. 2, I see you. 3, I see the way that the system is fucked up, and I am advocating at every single institutional level, from local to state to federal to national. I was at the inauguration, showed up at that thing, fully ready to state my case to whoever needed to hear it. And I did. And hence why we're filming with a major production crew. And this is just our first episode. I've come up against a lot of personal blocks in being willing and able to share my story, because at the end of the day, the DoD system hurt me and hurt my family and failed me and failed my family, failed my kids. But one specific person did, and that was somebody I was married to for a very long time, somebody who I once loved deeply and who I thought loved me. I question everything now. But that same person gave me the 3 most beautiful gifts I have ever received in my life. My beautiful children, Eleni Winter, Everly Spring, and Eisenhower August. And so I've had to walk a very fine line of understanding and knowing in my heart that this is the right thing to do. Going public is the right thing to do. Sharing my story is the right thing to do, because it's going to help others, and also working to protect them in the short and the long term, because me speaking out could keep me from being with them even longer, depending how punitive my DoD and my DoD member and the DoD at large want to be with me. They've already kind of done the worst that they possibly could. I feel like jail is the next step, but even that would be a little bit of a relief, because I wouldn't have to pay rent. My toiletries would be provided. I'd probably get more sleep than I'm getting now, 3 squares a day. I'd have time to do like my book club. I would for sure start some sort of like women's group where we educate ourselves on whatever is going on. But I hope it doesn't come to that, because I feel like I am a greater advocate here. It's the same thing I said to Colonel Sam Klein when he tried to posture when I was discussing toxic mold in the on-base housing that was making families sick, and he tried to offer me a job and sweet talk me. And I said, respectfully, sir, I think I'll make a bigger difference from outside of the system than I will from within, because I know the system. And as a DOD spouse and a U.S. Army historian, like, I'm actually like a weaponized nerd, and I know where to find these policies and how to find them. But with that, we are losing daylight. Let's see if I can kick a little bit on to get a few more minutes, but otherwise, nope, she gone. We don't need it. We're gonna call it there. This is the intro to the Trebuchet. I probably talked in a little bit of circles. For right now, this is just gonna be getting it all out, getting it all out, getting it all out, getting it all out. And then once the emotions of it have run, and I personally have shared my story, I've shared my heartbreak, I've shared what I went through, and I've put myself in a position to be an advocate for other women and men, maybe. I don't know if there's some of you men out there, but women and DOD dependents. Once I am in a place to hear your stories and to start to amplify those voices, that is when the actual whistleblowing will start, and the actual document disclosures will start. That's when the FOIAs will be released, and ideally that's when like a bigger publisher, like hopefully Wondery or another, more investigative podcast will come on. So we're going to run the energy of this. We're going to get it out. Everything I say can and will be used against me in family court, and I am prepared for that. But right now, this is what God has put on my soul, and it is to speak out and let others know that they're not alone, and that you might be scared, you might be terrified, but just know that there are people out here who see you and believe you and are listening. And the more we engage in this space and raise the profile collectively of the Trebuchet Podcast, the more those voices will be honored and seen. So, can't do this without you. Wouldn't want to. Thank you for joining me on my first sunset in Malibu. This is the Trebuchet Podcast officially launching. It's the Trebuchet on the Run. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm really looking forward to this. Bye.
Yikes.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
AirPods hooked up?
No. Okay, testing. Oh, whoa, the noise cancellation on these is so good. Hey, stand by. Oh, wow, that's really good.
Before tell me when you start recording.
Okay.
I need you to do a clap here in a second.
Okay.
For a slate. Let me know when you are ready.
All right.
Okay.
Ready. This is...
Okay, hold on. Look at the ocean again. Put your legs up like it was in the beginning. Like you're holding them. And look out for the ocean, please. Perfect. All right. I'm going to get a swaying move, so just stay right there, okay? I think that is good.
Nailed it.
Look, let me tell you, that was really good.
Really? You're funny.
No. It's really good.
If there is a joke to be made, A, I will make it, and B, if I can mess with somebody while doing it, I'm gonna do it. And yeah, so we launched. I'm very excited. This is the same thing like with my Bigfoot erotica jokes. Like people are like, I'm like, oh, I started an OnlyFans. They're like, what, you did? And I'm like, yeah, I mostly do Bigfoot erotica and earlobes. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, subscribe to find out.